There comes a moment in every heart when silence feels heavier than words. When your secret desires ache to be seen, yet fear whispers that you'll be misunderstood. But here's the truth: your desires are not a weakness. They are the map pointing you toward the love, the life, and the connection you crave. The mistake most people make is pretending they don't feel what they feel. Masking their needs, suppressing their longings, shrinking themselves to fit into someone else's comfort. And then they wonder why their relationships feel empty. Real attraction, real intimacy, is born when you stop hiding. When you dare to voice what your soul is quietly screaming. Because when secrets and desires speak, something shifts. Walls crumble, hearts open, the right people lean closer, and the wrong people drift away, making space for the ones who can actually meet you where you are. So don't bury your truth. Don't disguise your desires as silence. Speak them, let them breathe. Because your voice is not just sound. It's the doorway to the love you deserve. Desires are often painted as something to be ashamed of, something we should tuck away in the quiet corners of our lives, hoping no one notices. But the truth is, what we secretly long for is not a flaw, it's a compass. It's the most honest signal of what our hearts are truly searching for. Think about it: every desire you carry is like a map leading you to the connection, the fulfillment, the experiences you were built to embrace. The problem is not that we want too much. It's that we've been trained to believe wanting it all is dangerous. From an early age, many of us were told to temper our needs. Don't ask for too much. Don't be too needy. Don't want what feels out of reach. So what happens? We bury those desires under layers of politeness, self-protection, or fear of rejection. But the more we hide them, the more we disconnect from who we really are. We begin to act in ways that aren't authentic, showing people the version of us that's safe and acceptable, instead of the version that's alive with real longing. And here's the tragedy: people can only connect to the mask we wear, not the fire that burns inside us. Your desires are not weakness. They are strength disguised in vulnerability. When you allow yourself to admit what you want, to yourself first, and eventually to others, you step into clarity. Suddenly, you stop drifting in relationships that don't fulfill you, because you know what you're searching for. You stop wasting time hoping someone will just get you without you ever speaking, because you're willing to let your desires be heard. That clarity draws people in. It creates gravity. It sets the stage for a love and intimacy built on truth, not guessing games. Think of the moments in your life when you felt deeply connected to someone. Chances are, it wasn't when everything was perfect on the surface. It was when you let your guard down, when you shared something raw, something real, something you actually wanted. Maybe it was telling someone you missed them. Maybe it was admitting you were scared to lose them. Maybe it was voicing that you needed more, even at the risk of not getting it. That is where intimacy is born, not in the perfection of silence, but in the courage of desire. The irony is, the very thing you've been taught to hide is the very thing that would bring you closer to the kind of connection you crave. Desire isn't selfish, it's revealing. It shows what lights you up, what fulfills you, what nourishes your soul. When someone can meet you there, you don't just have a relationship, you have alignment. And if they can't, that truth saves you from wasting your heart on someone who was never capable of holding it. So every time you feel a longing rise up inside you, don't dismiss it. That ache is your inner compass pointing you forward. It's not a weakness to be silenced. It's your truest direction waiting to be followed. silence often feels like the safe choice. When emotions rise inside of us, when a need presses against our chest, there's a temptation to hold it back, to keep it hidden. We convince ourselves that saying nothing avoids conflict, that staying quiet keeps the peace, that withholding our truth will protect the relationship. But the silence we choose today becomes the distance we feel tomorrow. It builds walls one brick at a time, not through loud arguments or dramatic endings, but through the quiet erosion of intimacy. When you don't voice what you feel, you create a gap between your inner world and the person you want to be closest to. They may see your smile, they may hear your laugh, but they never get access to the deeper layers of you. The thoughts that matter most, the fears you battle, the hopes you quietly carry. And slowly, that gap grows. You start feeling unseen, even when you're sitting right next to someone. They can't read your silence, no matter how much you wish they could. And instead of creating harmony, the unspoken words become a silent storm, pulling you further apart. True connection doesn't live in silence, it lives in expression. Think of the moments when you've felt most drawn to someone. It wasn't because they were flawless or mysterious. It was because they shared something real, something vulnerable, something you could feel in your bones. When you speak, even imperfectly, you give someone a bridge into your world. You allow them to step closer. Without that, the relationship becomes a performance. Two people acting like everything is fine while both secretly craving more. It's easy to mistake silence for strength, as though biting back your needs makes you resilient. But silence isn't strength, it's surrender. It's giving up the chance to be known. It's choosing comfort in the moment over closeness in the long run. Because real strength is saying the hard thing with tenderness. Real strength is letting someone see the parts of you that might not be met with applause. Real strength is risking rejection so you can experience real intimacy. Every time you hold back your truth, you rob both yourself and the other person of the chance to grow closer. You rob them of the opportunity to love the real you, not just the polished version you've decided is acceptable. And you rob yourself of the relief and freedom that comes from being fully seen. Distance doesn't happen in a single dramatic event. It happens in all the silences that pile up, all the feelings that go unspoken, all the nights spent wondering why you feel alone while lying in someone else's arms. The paradox is this: silence feels safe in the short term, but dangerous in the long run. Words may create tension, but silence creates separation. And what starts as a small space between two hearts eventually becomes an unbridgeable chasm. To close that space, you must be willing to speak, not to argue, not to accuse, but to reveal. Because when silence rules, intimacy starves. And when words flow, connection breathes again. Do you want me to keep expanding each point in this raw, poetic narrative style, so you'll have a full-length transformative speech ready? Or would you like me to make it more story-driven, weaving in personal scenarios and metaphors? Suppression is the quiet killer of attraction. On the surface, it looks harmless. Biting your tongue, pretending not to care, acting like you're fine, when inside you're craving something more. We do it because we think it makes us easier to love. We think that by shrinking our needs, we'll appear more independent, more low maintenance, more desirable. But what really happens is the opposite. When you deny your feelings, you disconnect from your own truth. And in doing so, you disconnect from the very energy that makes you magnetic in the first place. Attraction thrives on authenticity. It's the spark that comes from someone who isn't afraid to show their passion, their joy, their excitement, their longing. That rawness is contagious. It pulls people closer because it feels real. But when you suppress what you feel, you dim that light. You put a filter over your emotions and present a watered down version of yourself. And people might accept it, but they won't feel the depth of who you are. They'll be standing across from you, wondering why the connection feels flat, not realizing it's because the real you is hidden beneath layers of silence and self-protection. Think about how many times you've held back from saying what you wanted. Maybe you didn't text when you missed someone because you didn't want to look desperate. Maybe you downplayed your excitement because you didn't want to seem too invested. Maybe you stayed quiet about your needs because you were afraid they'd see you as difficult. In those moments, what you gave wasn't your truth. It was a performance. And while performances can entertain, they don't sustain intimacy. They keep relationships stuck on the surface, never touching the depth that makes them unshakable. Suppression doesn't just rob you of connection. It also creates resentment. Every time you silence yourself, you create a small wound. You feel unseen, unheard, unacknowledged. Over time, those wounds multiply, and they don't go away, they harden. Suddenly, the relationship you once hoped would fulfill you feels like a cage, because you can't breathe inside it. And ironically, the very silence you thought would make you more lovable becomes the reason you feel unloved. Real attraction isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up as the full version of yourself, unfiltered. When you allow your emotions to be seen, you create energy in the relationship. Sometimes messy, sometimes intense, but always real. And that energy is what draws people in. It's what makes them feel alive in your presence. It's what makes them want to stay. Not because they're comfortable, but because they're captivated. Suppressing your feelings may feel like control, but it's really disconnection. It's a slow dimming of the spark that could have set everything on fire. When you hold back your truth, you don't just lose your voice. You lose the very force that makes someone feel irresistibly drawn to you. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. We're taught to see it as weakness, as if exposing our heart somehow strips us of power. But the opposite is true. Vulnerability is the rawest form of strength, because it demands courage in the face of uncertainty. It requires you to open the door to your inner world, without any guarantee of how someone will respond. And in that risk lies the seed of the deepest connection you could ever experience. When you hide behind walls, you may protect yourself from rejection, but you also protect yourself from intimacy. No one can touch the real you if you're always covered in armor. People might admire the mask, but they won't fall in love with it. Love doesn't happen in the perfection of what you show. It happens in the cracks. In the places where you let yourself be seen as you really are. It's in the tremble in your voice when you admit you're scared. It's in the truth of saying you miss someone, even if you don't know if they'll say it back. It's in the honesty of revealing your needs, even if they might not be met. Vulnerability builds connection because it awakens empathy. When you dare to share what's inside, you create a space where the other person feels safe to do the same. Your openness gives them permission to drop their own guard. Suddenly, you're not two people performing. You're two souls meeting. That kind of closeness can't be manufactured. It can't be forced. It only happens when someone risks letting down the walls and trusts that their truth is enough. Think of the most meaningful bonds in your life. They weren't built on perfection or constant agreement. They were built on moments of truth. When someone showed you their tears, their doubts, their raw edges, and you love them more, not less, because of it. Or when you finally let someone see the part of you you'd always kept hidden, and instead of running, they stayed. That is where intimacy lives, in the spaces where both people are brave enough to be real. The paradox is that vulnerability feels like losing control, yet it creates the very closeness and stability we crave. When you open yourself up, yes, you risk being hurt. But you also invite the kind of connection that makes the risk worth it. Playing it safe may protect your heart, but it leaves you lonely. Vulnerability may expose your heart, but it gives someone the chance to truly hold it. Every relationship that endures is built on this foundation. Not on the absence of flaws, not on the avoidance of fear, but on the willingness to be exposed and accepted. To reveal your heart is to place trust, not only in another person, but in yourself, that even if your truth isn't met the way you hope, you are strong enough to stand in it. That's the power of vulnerability. It doesn't just build connection, it is connection. Speaking your truth acts like a filter. It reveals who is truly meant to stand beside you, and who isn't. When you voice what you want, when you share what matters to you, when you stop disguising your needs to keep the peace, something powerful happens. The right people lean closer. They're drawn in by your honesty, because it gives them something solid to hold on to. And at the same time, the wrong people fade away. They may resist, they may pull back, they may even disappear altogether. But that isn't a loss, it's clarity. It's life showing you who can meet you where you are, and who can't. Too often we silence ourselves out of fear of pushing people away. We think, if I say what I want, they'll leave. If I speak my truth, they won't understand. But here's the reality. If your truth is too heavy for someone, they were never strong enough to carry it in the first place. Pretending, shrinking, and holding back only delays the inevitable. You can wear the mask for a while, but eventually your soul gets tired of being hidden. And when it does, the relationship either breaks under the weight of dishonesty or drifts into emptiness, where neither person feels truly known. When you speak your truth, you don't just filter relationships. You protect your own energy. You stop pouring time and love into connections that were never capable of giving you what you deserve. You stop guessing whether someone can handle the real you, because you've already shown them. And in that process, you create room for alignment. The people who are meant for you will not only stay, they'll rise to meet you. They'll see your openness as an invitation to drop their own walls. They'll step into the same vulnerability you offered, and together, you'll build something rooted in honesty, instead of performance. It's not about demanding perfection from others. It's about knowing that real connection requires truth. When you filter relationships through your honesty, you don't have to chase validation. You don't have to wonder if someone loves you for who you really are. You'll know, because you've given them the chance to see you fully. That clarity might sting at first, especially when it reveals who isn't meant to stay. But it saves you from wasting years in situations that will never fulfill you. Imagine the freedom of never questioning where you stand with someone. Imagine the peace of knowing you don't have to act, guess, or beg for understanding. That's the gift of speaking your truth. It puts the choice in the open. They can either accept the real you or walk away. And both outcomes serve you. One deepens the bond you share. The other clears the space for the person who will. Either way, your truth becomes the compass that guides you to the love that can actually hold you. Your voice is more than just sound. It is power. It carries the weight of your truth, the rhythm of your desires, the heartbeat of who you are. When you use it, you do more than speak. You unlock the doors to closeness and authenticity. Words have a way of reaching where silence never can. They bridge the gap between your inner world and someone else's heart. They take what is invisible, your feelings, your needs, your hopes, and make them tangible. And once spoken, they can change the entire direction of a relationship. So many people hold back from using their voice because they fear it will make them too much. They worry about being misunderstood, rejected, or judged. But what's left unsaid doesn't just disappear. It lingers. It shows up as tension in your body, as distance in your relationships, as a quiet ache that refuses to go away. The moment you speak, that weight lifts. Even if the words aren't perfect, even if the response isn't what you hoped for, there's freedom in no longer carrying unspoken truths. Your voice releases you from the prison of silence. And more than that, your voice draws people closer. When you express yourself honestly, you give others something real to connect to. Think about the times you've been moved by someone's words. Not because they were polished or flawless, but because they were true. Maybe it was a confession, maybe it was an "I love you." Maybe it was an apology spoken through tears. The words touched you because they were alive with honesty. That's the power of your own voice. It doesn't need to be perfect to create closeness. It only needs to be authentic. The act of speaking your truth also sets a standard. It communicates to others how you expect to be treated, what matters to you, what you will and will not accept. Without words, people are left to guess, and guesses are rarely accurate. But when you voice your boundaries, your desires, your emotions, you create clarity. And clarity is the foundation of connection. It allows the other person to step into the relationship with open eyes, knowing who you really are and what you really need. Your voice is also a reminder, to yourself as much as to others, that you matter, that your feelings are valid, that your perspective deserves to be heard. Every time you choose to speak instead of suppress, you affirm your own worth. You send a message to your soul: I will not abandon you. I will not hide you. I will stand for you. That self-loyalty radiates outward, and it makes others take notice. People are drawn to those who honor themselves enough to speak, because it signals confidence, courage, and authenticity. Connection doesn't grow in silence. It grows in expression. Your voice is the tool that breathes life into love, that deepens trust, that transforms ordinary moments into bonds that last. It is not just sound, it is your power. And when you use it, everything changes. Love has always belonged to the brave. It doesn't unfold in the comfort of walls or the safety of silence. It blooms in the rawness of courage. To reveal who you truly are. To open the tender parts of your heart. To step forward without knowing how the world will respond. That is the doorway to the love you crave. Fear tells you to wait until it's safe, until you're certain, until the risk of rejection disappears. But love doesn't work that way. Love requires the leap before the net appears. Courage in love isn't about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It's about the simple, terrifying honesty of being real. It's telling someone you care, even when you don't know if they feel the same. It's admitting what you need, even when you fear it might push them away. It's letting your flaws show, trusting that the right person will see beauty in the cracks instead of weakness. Every act of courage may feel small in the moment, but together, they create a foundation where real love can take root. The alternative is hiding, staying quiet, playing it safe, keeping your heart locked away. And yes, That might protect you from immediate pain, but it also guarantees emptiness. A love built on half-truths and unspoken feelings is not love at all, it's a performance. It looks fine on the outside, but inside it's hollow. You don't crave safety. You crave depth, fire, intimacy. And those can only be found when you choose to step through fear and reveal yourself fully. Courage doesn't promise that you won't be hurt. What it promises is freedom. When you dare to show up as you are, you no longer live in the torment of what if. You no longer replay moments in your mind, wishing you had said more, wishing you had shown up differently. You live in the clarity of knowing you gave your truth, even if it wasn't received the way you hoped. That clarity is priceless, because it frees your heart to move toward someone who can actually meet you with the same courage. Love has never belonged to the ones who wait quietly in the background, hoping to be noticed. It belongs to those who step forward, who take the risk of being seen. When you choose courage, you send out a signal to the world: I am ready. Ready to be known. Ready to give. Ready to receive. And that signal attracts the kind of connection that silence never will. The people who are capable of loving you deeply will be drawn to that bravery, because they recognize it as the language of real intimacy. The love you desire isn't found in perfection. It's found in courage. Every moment you dare to reveal yourself, you bring that love closer. Every time you choose honesty over silence, openness over fear, you inch closer to the relationship that will make you feel alive. Love is not for the faint-hearted. It is for the bold, for those willing to risk, for those willing to be seen. And when you choose courage, you don't just invite love. You ignite it. We've walked through the truth that desires are not weakness but direction, that silence builds walls where intimacy could thrive, that suppression starves attraction, and that vulnerability is the key to closeness. We've seen how speaking your truth filters out what's false, how your voice is power, and how courage is the doorway to love itself. Every part of you that you've been hiding, the longing, the fear, the fire, the truth, was never meant to be silenced. It was meant to be spoken, lived, and shared. Because the life and the love you crave will never be found in masks or half-truths. They will only be found in the raw courage of showing up as the real you. So dare to speak. Dare to reveal. Dare to let your desires be seen. Because when you do, you stop chasing connections that can't hold you, and start building the kind of intimacy that sets your soul on fire. And if there is one message I want you to leave with today, it's this: love belongs to the bold. The ones who risk their truth. The ones who choose to be seen. The ones who understand that authenticity is not just an option. It's the only path to the life they deserve. Thank you for walking this journey with me, for opening your heart to these words, and for daring, if only for a moment, to imagine a love and a life without fear. Until next time, take care of your truth. Guard your courage, and never forget the world doesn't need the version of you that hides. It needs the version of you that speaks. Goodbye for now, and thank you.